Thank you very much. I'm very selfish of my time. I have 30 minutes. But I couldn't help but add a video this morning. After watching a little bit this morning, I wanted to add this video.
Did you sleep up there? It's going to get awful cold in there for those guys. Gene, we have a situation brewing with the carbon dioxide.
We had a CO2 filter problem on the lunar module.
5 filters on the limb.
Which were meant for 2 guys for a day and a half. So I told the doc.
You're already up to 8 on the gauges. Anything over 15 and you get impaired judgment, blackouts, the beginnings of brain asphyxia.
What about the scrubbers on the command module?
They take square cartridges.
The ones on the limb are round.
Tell me this isn't a government operation.
This just isn't a contingency we've remotely looked at.
Those CO2 levels are going to be getting toxic.
Well, I suggest you gentlemen invent a way to put a square peg in a round hole. Rapidly.
Okay, people, listen up. People upstairs handed us this one, and we gotta come through. We gotta find a way to make this fit into the hole for this, using nothing but that. Let's get it organized.
Okay, let's build a filter.
Better get some coffee going, too, someone.
CO2 gas is literally poisoning the astronauts with every breath in and out.
Heads up, heads up.
And spokespeople will not comment further.
Go. Heads up, people. Look out now. What's this? That's what they gotta make.
Anybody in here from IT? It reminds me so much of the day before the presentation you make to your executive, and they come in with the last-minute changes, and then you're walking into the presentation, things are falling off, and anyway. But it's about collaboration, and we want to leverage collaboration. And why do we want to use collaboration? Why do we want to collaborate with one another, and why is that so important these days? It's because of this idea that we want to be innovative, and we want to be more efficient. And I actually equate that to a leadership quality review we did last year, actually a survey we did of a bunch of CEOs, and they came up with what was the most important leadership quality. And it's one that I was pleasantly surprised it was the choice of creativity. Executives say that they want creativity in their leadership, above things like loyalty and openness and other things. They want people to be creative, all right? So let's say creative is important to your executives. So he comes to you and he says, make our company creative. Okay, how do you do that? How do you actually make your company creative? What kind of words come to mind when you think of creative? And I don't mind you guys shouting out. So when I say creative, what kind of words come to your mind? If you could do it in English, it would be helpful. Innovation, exactly. Okay. Others? Ideas. I mean, here's some words: clever, fertile. Do those describe your organization today? If you were to take a step back and say, if I look at my organization, I would do things like we are innovative and we're inspired and we're inventive. Is that words that describe your organization? Is that the way you want your organization to be described? And one of the things about creativity is it's not just that it's important, but it's hard to find in your organization. I mean, Picasso said we're all born artists, but we just have to, the challenge is to remain artists as we grow up. Okay? There's some great studies out there about how you give little kids tests on creativity and they just score in the genius level. But then the same studies given to them year after year after year, they just drop and drop and drop. Why? Because we're educating them. Okay, we actually educate our kids and educate our students. We educate our new workers, often out of being creative. We put them into our processes. I'm not against process. Don't anyone lynch me, okay? But process is important. But the point is we need to kind of spark this creative culture. We're actually moving quite well from an environment of I am valued for what I know to more of a I am valued by what I share. And we see that happening today with the social market. People now are no longer just hoarding information, but they're becoming more of a sharing organization. And if you want to have this this creative culture in your organization, how do you actually define that? This isn't about technology. I stand here, as an IBMer. This does not have, technology is important, but it's not the critical part of this. This is about culture. This is about the way you and your organization behaves. It's about the way people look at your organizations. Often I have the opportunity to speak to executives, and I ask people, so tell me about your culture. Is it one of sharing? Do you guys actually share ideas openly? Is it one that if I were to ask someone that was looking from the outside, would they say you're kind of an open and a forward-thinking company? There's a guy, Steven Johnson, he wrote a book called Where Good Ideas Come From. And in that book, he speaks of how when people have good ideas, they don't just happen out all of a sudden. When your employees and when your people in your company have these brilliant ideas, it doesn't just come to them. They have a kind of a thought, something that kind of sits in the back of their mind. And you can relate to this. You have an idea. You think about something that could change, something in your business you could change, and then you sleep on it. Or it goes dormant for some period of time. And then all of a sudden, your idea, your hunch, is met by someone else who has another hunch, and they say something that sparks that, and then you have this breakthrough moment. And Johnson's premise of his book is that we need to have these ideas bouncing about one another where we can actually have these innovative things happen. So if you think of these hunches, these good ideas, where are the people in your company who have these brilliant ideas? Where are the people who have these hunches? I would challenge you, don't go look in your org chart. All right? In fact, when we actually ask people where the brilliant ideas come from, things like R&D, research and development, ranks well low on the list. It's the people on the shop floor. It's your customers. It's just normal people in your work organization. They're the ones who have these good ideas. And if you want to get these ideas, how do you actually get them? How do you ask people, tell me your good ideas? Are they going to fill out a form? I mean, think about it. I mean, how many of you have ever received a form and it says, we want to have your best ideas, or we want to have your opinion. Here's, choices 1 through 10. And you're thinking, my answer's not there. I'm looking for 11 or 12. Or I want to write something in. Where's the place for me to write in my idea? Forms are not the best, and I'm not against forms, all right? But it's not the greatest approach for getting ideas, nor is mass mailing. Just sending out an email to everyone saying, tell me your good ideas. Because the people who have these thoughts, it's more of an ad hoc thing. Often it's more of a thing that just happens on the spur of the moment. It's a knowledge accident that happens. Okay? I know about accidents with you guys because of the bicyclist. I'm very familiar now with bicyclists and protocol about don't stepping in front of them. Okay? And 2 green lights would be an issue in your corners. But this idea is how do I spark these collisions? How do I make this happen? There's 3 things you do to do that. First of all, you have to open up your conversation. And we'll explain that. You have to do it in the context of the work that they're doing. And then you have to listen and learn, okay? So when I say open up the conversation, how do the people in your organizations communicate with one another? This is feedback time. How do you talk to one another? How do you share ideas? Anyone? Pardon? Over lunch. That's good. So person to person. There's a lot of email transactions, things that go on, okay? There's a lot of ways that we communicate with one another. Often we do this on a one-on-one basis, okay? So I'm looking for a particular answer, and I've got my cohort here in the front row, Bo. And I know Bo knows a lot about telecommunications. And so I were to ask Bo a question about what is the collaboration brand doing with telecommunications, and I were to send him an email, and he were to answer that, that's a great conversation, but only the 2 of us are benefiting from that. Okay? If we had that conversation more in the open, then other people could benefit from that. Johnson goes on to talk about coffee houses and tea houses, okay, and how that sparked innovation. What actually happened was, in the birthplace of the innovative society, tea houses actually became quite popular because after work, this was in London, after work people would come out of the factories and they'd go previously to the bars where they would drink and talk about work. Well, after about 2 or 3 drinks, you forget what you're talking about, right? Okay, the tea houses actually had them sit for a period of time. The caffeine stimulated their thoughts. They stayed on topic for a longer period of time, and it actually helped the innovative process because people could talk about work and remain sober. So how do you actually make these? In fact, here's an example of this. October 4th, since we're on space, October 4th, 1957, the Russians launched Sputnik. Okay, it was a Friday. By Monday, October the 7th, it was all the talk. I know that because I was born on October 7th, and that's everybody was talking about Sputnik, okay? I remember that. All right, so, I thought they would be talking about me, but no, they're talking about Sputnik. Well, everyone was concerned with this thing that's now overhead. And these guys in MIT was actually thinking about this. They said, we do radio stuff, and it's emitting a signal. Russia was kind enough to put a signal in it so that we'd know it's not a hoax. It's actually floating up there. And they said, you know what, if we put some places on and listen to the signal, we could probably track that thing. And within a week's time, they built an application that actually tracked it. And they were talking about it, someone mentioned over lunch. They were talking about it in one of their break rooms, about what they had done. And a gentleman overheard them and said, you know what? What you have done is you have, from 2 fixed places on the earth, you have found something that's unknown, where that's at in space. If you had 2 fixed places in space, could you find an unknown spot on the earth? They said, sure, it'd work. He was working on a missile tracking system for the government. It was the predecessor of global positioning, which you have in your phones today. But it happened because of a coincidence. He happened to be sitting across the table, listening in on their conversation. So how do you create these virtual coffee houses? How do you make that happen in your company? How do you open this up? Is it a matter of let's just put everybody in one room and just encourage open conversation and chaos? No, you have to create somewhat of a virtual place. And the way we do that is with things like give people an identity. Let them actually say who they are and what they know and what they're interested in. Social helps you do that. I mean, it's very easy for people to put in their profile what my background is, what my interests are. We use things like tags. I don't know if you're familiar with social tags, but tags are just an identification. What is it that you're interested in? What is it that you're known for? If I had that conversation with Bo, and I found out he knows about telecommunications, likely, within our environment actually, I would actually probably see him on my calendar entry or whatever where we're having a meeting. I'd see his profile, I could pull up his profile, and I'd tag him, telecommunications expert. Why? So I could find him later. But also other people can find him because of that. So this ability to tag people, the ability to actually, and I know what's going through your head, you're going, what if people tag me incorrectly and whatever? Come back for my next session, that's on Mythbusters, we'll talk about that. The point is, tags are a way to kind of let people know and know others. They also want to belong. People want to get together. It's not a matter of, gee, we have this water cooler or this coffee place. By the way, one of the things about Europe that I have learned, okay, this isn't the case in the U.S., but one of the things I've learned about Europe is whenever I go to visit one of you, and you offer me a coffee, I'm having a coffee. You know, I used to say, no, I just had one in the car, you know, but never again. You guys do business at coffee machines. I have learned that if I walk in, I don't care if I'm full and I can't stand anymore, I'm having a cup of coffee because you learn so much over that coffee machine, right? You need to belong. You need to have a group of people that you know what you're going to talk about. Communities help you do that. Things like wikis and ideation blogs. This is something else that we've got. This is the topic of, this is actually your version of what we do within IBM, which is these idea jams, which if you've ever heard of that. We put a topic out there. We're going to talk about conservation projects. We're going to talk about greener economy. We're going to talk about what's the next big collaboration project. And then we open it up and say, anyone and everyone, tell us your ideas. And then instead of having some committee that sits back and watches the ideas and judges what's right, we actually let the audience decide. There's a great YouTube video by a gentleman who talks about how Greenpeace wanted to name a whale. Okay, they wanted to give a whale a name because they were trying to cut down Japanese whaling. And so they wanted to personalize it. So they said, let's name a whale. We'll give a contest. People can name this whale. And the guys from Reddit, which is a very popular social community, they caught on to the story. And so all their readers started naming the whale. Now, Greenpeace wanted some name like, you know, some Greek name or some very prestigious name. The guys at Reddit wanted to call it Mr. Splashy Pants. Okay? Because they just wanted their newscaster on the news to say, and here's where Mr. Splashy Pants is today, right? And so what happened was over time, Greenpeace, after the 2 weeks was up, they said, we've got too many votes for Mr. Splashy Pants. So instead of cutting it off, we're actually going to make it extend even longer. We're going to give it another 2 weeks, which just enraged the Reddit people, and they just even got more excited about it. And then there were Mr. Splashy Plants T-shirts and bumper stickers. And what happened is over time, more people became engaged with this project. People on the fringes, people who just didn't have any, really didn't have any interest until the topic came up. Then they got involved. Ideation blogs help you do that. It brings people in from the fringe. Often people who may not know specific knowledge. That's why I love doing what I do, because I know so little. I can actually come to your company, and because I don't know very much, I can actually ask you questions that may be stupid questions, but sometimes they're just the question you need. Sometimes it's that outside view, that outside question that you go, I don't know why we do it that way. That's an interesting question. So a good way to garner that interest. Discussion forums are quite popular, microblogs. This is the idea of just status updates. And this actually is a very valuable tool. Status updates are more than I'm going to get coffee, I'm going to go to get Danish now, I'm going to step outside for a cigarette. That's not what people use this for in a company. What people do here, and again, I'm doing a commercial for my next session, okay? So in the next session, we talk about this a little more. I actually had a gentleman post a question on my status update. He said, Lewis, how do you put in the notes widget plug-in to the whatever? It was a technical question. I'm not a technical person, okay? But yet he posted it on my board, my area. Now what happened was 4 hours later, I was with a customer. When I came out of my customer meeting, I was checking my status updates. I saw that question, and below it, someone had answered it. And so I went to John, the guy who posted. I said, John, why did you post that on my board? Why did you ask me that question? He said, Lewis, I knew you didn't know the answer, but I know people that you know the answer. I was used, right? But it's that conversation I'm telling you about. Instead of him just asking me in an email, Lewis, do you know someone who knows something? I would have turned around and sent that email. He just asked the question loud enough in the group of people that I hang with, and someone answered it for him. He got his answer in 15 minutes, and I wasn't even involved other than just I was the place that he put the question, right? So again, open the conversation. People have things they want to share, files, they have media. This is the stuff that these knowledge accidents are made of. And these social solutions are very good at doing this. But you have to do it in the context of the work that they're doing. This is critically important. This is what social apps look like, okay? Now think about from an IT perspective or from even a corporate executive. That's in my organization? How do I manage that? All right? There's a lot of opportunities, a lot of vendors out there that position themselves as we do this particular piece. We do media, or we do the conversation part, or we do the photographs. And all these things can be good for specific needs. But what happens is it creates these little silos. And vendors are out there too, by the way, and you probably have them. Vendors who actually produce things like your CRM system, your customer relationship management system. They'll just take and put social in front of their name and say, now we're a social CRM system because we do people, right? And then we have the social ERP system, and we have the social whatever. Social's become the new E-word, e-industry, e-commerce. Now do people just put social in front of everything, and it's social. That's not the case. These do create these little silos. So now I have this pocket of people around my CRM system, and then I have a pocket of people around this application here and a pocket of people here. You need to bring this all throughout the entire business. We've done this with content before. For anyone who's been around for a while, you know that in the old days past, John Owada went way back, right? And I'm talking about just the days when we just first came out with electronic documents. That used to be for specialized people, and it was stored in specialized places. And once it became part of what we do every day, we could drag and drop from our desktop. Then it became content that we could use because it became part of our daily work. That's happened with content. And it had little impact on our business until we could get to it on a daily basis. Everybody could get to it. And social is very much that same way. Until you can take this whole idea of conversation and social sharing, until you can make that part of what you do on a daily basis, it's not really going to have the impact that you want. So let's take a look at some examples. In fact, I was challenged this. There was a gentleman in Germany who was a tire manufacturer. And I sat across the table from him, and he said, we don't do social, we do tires. And he was serious. Okay? In fact, when he told me, he said, we do tires, we don't do social. He turned his body. Social was here. And so I said, brilliant. Tell me how you do social. How you do tires. What do you do for tires? And he said, well, when I come in the morning, I turn on my PC. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I open up my portal application, my internet page. I said, great. We make that social. Social has become part of people's intranet pages. This happens to be the IBM intranet page. And we actually dedicate that much real estate. This is what every IBMer sees. That much real estate to social. And social is embedded in our search. Social is part of our news. In fact, if you were asked a bunch of IBMers, if you were asked people outside of collaboration services, so tell me, what do you know about connections? Do you use it on a daily basis? They'd go, no, I don't even know what it is. But guess what? They use it every day because social has become part of what they do. It works inside of email clients and collaboration clients. So now, as part of what I'm doing inside of my communication tool, I can actually then see people, I can access people, I can instantly message them. And if you use a substandard email product, it actually works inside of that as well. Just kidding, okay? Kind of serious, but just kidding. And then you can take things like, I have content. I have things where I've been doing work and sharing ideas. You can actually bring those in. So your SharePoint libraries, your enterprise repositories, those things can become part. In other words, social starts to surround some of this. Again, it becomes part of your business life. And then we have social analytics. John talked about all the data. Another myth that we're going to talk about this afternoon is all this data. What is it good for? Well, actually, we can actually embed and use social analytics to actually help you pull from this. So when I'm listening, when I see this happen, when people respond, I need to learn, okay? I have to tell the story, okay? I'm a parent, I have children. They're all married and off my payroll, okay? But when they were little, we went to see one of their performances. And if any of you have kids, I don't know if y'all use rhythm instruments here, but the kindergarten teacher put all the kids up on stage. They sang a few songs, and then she came along with a box, and she passed these rhythm instruments out. Little kids had blocks and triangles. One kid had a triangle. They sang a few songs. It was very pleasant. And then the teacher said, okay, so now we're going to put those down, and we're going to sing a few more songs. And the kids immediately started taking the instruments, like the sticks, and putting them in their pockets. And the little kid with the blocks put those in his pockets. The little kid on the end had a triangle. It was brilliant. He had the triangle, and he would try to put it in his pocket, and it wouldn't fit. He put one end in, he'd turn it around, he'd put the other end in, he'd turn it around. Everybody in the audience was watching this kid try to solve this problem. Okay, they're just not even listening to the music. They're watching this kid. And then, he's going, I got to get with everybody else. They're all singing, and look at them. They put them in the pocket. How'd they do that? Okay, and then all of a sudden, he was like, I know what to do. He put the clanger in his pocket and hung the triangle on it. And very unimpressed with himself, started singing. I thought to myself, and by the way, the crowd went crazy. All right, we almost started applauding, and the teachers are going, what's going on, okay? This is like your organization, okay? You've got some worker standing on the end of some line trying to fix some problem, and he comes up with some brilliant solution, and he doesn't even know it's brilliant. There's somebody else on the other end of the line with another triangle that they can't fix the problem. But he doesn't know this is a brilliant solution, and so therefore, he just kind of steps back into and starts working again. The managers have no idea this person's struggling. They're too busy keeping the song going to have this brilliant idea go to waste. All right? This is your organization. Think about kids with triangles. Next time you see these, think about those little triangles, okay? So you need insight. How do I actually find the kids with the triangles? How do I find what's going on? We have a thing called Cognos Consumer Insight. It's one of our products. It allows us actually to look at social networks, to look at all that data, look at all those conversations that's going on. And you can actually pull from that information. It goes out and listens, and then you just ask it questions. So what were people saying about our brand on this day? And when they were talking about this, what else were they talking about? So again, we help you with that. We're obviously pretty good at data. And then there's things that, even the social being itself, who do I communicate with? How close am I to these people? How do I actually connect people? We actually do that. We have software that helps you do that as well. And the one challenge I have for you is those people with hunches. This is something I talk to HR. So if any of you in here are HR or you know your HR people, ask them, how are they tracking these people with these brilliant ideas? How are we maintaining and keeping them? Because we used to say, if I'm a sales rep, I'm not going to, Bo, for instance. Bo has great relationships with a lot of customers. If I get ready to fire or get rid of a sales team, I'm probably not going to get rid of Bo because he has a great Rolodex, a lot of good contacts. In your organizations today, there's all kinds of people who have contacts, who have influence, who are out there social. I was talking with a company, and they said, we almost made a mistake. We were going to get rid of some customer service people, and we were measuring them on how many phone calls they took. And this one guy wasn't taking as many phone calls as the other, until we found out that he was actually using blogs to answer questions. And he was answering thousands of questions where these other guys were answering hundreds of phone calls. He just said, it's silly. I keep answering the same questions all over again. So I wrote a blog, and that's where I put my stuff. And now the customers go to that blog instead. They almost fired him because they weren't measuring the right thing. And by the way, if they had fired him, he'd probably on his blog said, I'm leaving XYZ company. They're not very innovative. They hacked me, whatever. And guess what? Ruins, right? So how do you actually manage these people? So again, your creative organization, open the conversation. Think about when Bo asks me a question now with email, which Bo sometimes does. He'll ask me a question. If I think that's a question that's just a one conversation, how do I pick you up today from work? I'll tell him that. But if he asked me a question that was provocative, I thought, other people might like to answer that. Instead of answering him in an email, I just do the same amount of work. I just answer him in my social network. I answer it in a blog, a wiki. It's a file over here I already have. I share that with him. Someone else comes along, asks the question 2 days later. How many of you have ever gone through your email See, I've answered that question before. Cut and paste, right? We've done that. But now all I do is I just go to my social network and share it with a second person. Very nice. Brilliant is a month later, I look at that file and 100 people have looked at it. 98 emails I didn't get. Okay? I'll share with you sometime if you'd like over a coffee. My email box every day is empty. Okay? We don't do email conversations. And we're willing to help you too. So if you go to ibm.com/social, you can get to all kinds of information, because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't be very social, right? So if you want to reach me, different ways you can reach me, as well as I'm here for the day. And I would encourage you, if you haven't had enough, come back in 10 minutes and we'll talk about myths within social. So thanks.